Okay, we have our first speaker of the day, Vincent Medley. Vincent Medley is Maddie's Director of Human Animal Support Services. He spent 21 years as a leader of 4 of the largest government-funded animal shelters in the United States: Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and Philadelphia, where he served at every level of shelter operations and management and led through some of the toughest transitions. Vincent was also the CEO of a non-profit shelter that contracted enforcement and shelter services within large city governments, and has been a frequent speaker and trainer in animal shelters and at conferences across the country. Vincent's background, experience and values drive his commitment to life-saving and the human animal services support model of keeping people and pets together. Welcome, Vincent Medley, presenting on the basics of human animal support services.
Good morning. Can you all hear me? This works. Okay. I'm normally mic'd up so I can walk around, but this works as well too. I can stay. And this is my clicker here.
Oh yes, clicker instructions. So that's forward, that's back, and that's fun.
That's my laser point. Oh, that's the fireworks. All right. So good morning. I was introduced as I'm Vincent Medley, and I am the Maddie's Director for the Human Animal Support Services Project. For those of you that don't know, the Maddie's Fund is one of the largest philanthropic organizations in animal welfare, and they funded the project that I'm going to talk a little bit about. So for some of you, we're going to start off with kind of like just an entry-level understanding, and then we're also going to have a little fun because I'm going to show you some of the inside of our project as a whole for those of you, because I know a lot of you absorb our content, whether it's webinars, our toolkits. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about our podcast and the number of different things. My background, I started off as an animal control officer, but in the city of Dallas, we worked in the kennels starting out. So I was part kennel tech, part animal control officer, which is what you all call an animal management officer. And so I have seen animal welfare since I started in 1999, seen it for the last 20-something years. And when I first started, we didn't know what nobody in our shelter ever said live release rate to me. Our biggest program was euthanasia. And I was one of the people, and a lot of my coworkers. You take the city of Dallas, 55,000 intake. You euthanize most of the animals. You can just tell. I don't even have to tell you what a day in the euthanasia lab was like. And I was in the plenty. So when I come and talk to you today, it's not from a place of judgment or the reason why I was asked to take over the Human Animal Support Services Project. It's not from a place of judgment. It's a place of experience and learning and developing and understanding that I didn't have to take responsibility for programs that I didn't institute or implement and solutions that were not working. So my responsibility, especially as a leader, is to continually find the newest thing. And so as part of my career journey, I not only worked for all of the places that were mentioned, I also worked for the Humane Society of the United States, and also worked as the chief animal cruelty officer and supervisor on an Indian reservation in Albuquerque, outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico, called Isleta Pueblo. So have a lot of experience and can talk to you about a whole bunch of things, and animal welfare is like, I think I was born to do it, and I'm very honored to be here. So thank you all. And I also want to give honor to the indigenous community that has traditionally had this land, and their elders and those who presently are caretakers of it. Talked a little bit about my background already. I have all my national certifications, worked in a lot of different places. So when we talk about the Human Animal Support Services Project, just to give you a little bit of a brief history, our project, and man, this is hard. Okay, our project is, I guess I'll just stand and look at the, our project was launched in 2020, it was during COVID, And it was really all about animal care organizations across the country. About 300 ended up, animal welfare professionals ended up working on our project to solve some of the biggest problems in animal welfare. It was co-founded by somebody you all know, and me and her, the two of us have known each other for a long time, Ellen Jefferson, who runs a shelter called Austin Pets Alive, an organization called Austin Pets Alive, which is the organization that we actually, that I was actually hired by, that Maddie's Fund used to hire me. It is to build a strategy for collaborating across the industry and also to manage shelter crisis and engaging the community and reimagining the community. And we'll talk a little bit about that in some of our other presentations about what engaging the community looks like. There are some misconceptions, and we want to clear that up. And I have a session later, so you're going to be seeing me a lot today. I think I have 3 sessions today, so just get used to seeing my face. Once again, like I said, the industry leaders were part of this as well. We 300, whether it was local shelters, national organizations, all participated in our project. To give you a little bit of a background on our project, I'm the project leader. We have 22 employees. About 30 people in all contribute in some way, either part-time or full-time, but we have 22 core employees that work on the HASS project across the United States. We focus on 3 divisions which handle all of our work, is education and implementation. That's our training team. The data and research, which is that do the gathering and work with shelters on justifying and improving their concepts, and also vetting the concepts that we try out in the different shelters, and also government and policy. We do a lot of policy work, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. We have 22 pilot shelters that have 44 facilities. Our pilot shelters range from all over the United States, from Los Angeles to Mike Wheeler, who is one of the presenters here. His community is smaller, but it's in Cabot, Arkansas, and we all work together to prove concepts and to provide those, to test out ideas and to collaborate to solve some of the industry's biggest problems. We have over 165 partners, which are people that, or organizations that have signed up to absorb our content and work with us in some way on some of our projects, and we use them for a lot of crowdsourcing for solutions for our projects. And then also our fellow animal welfare and individuals and also organizations are part of we have, and we'll talk about the numbers there. Our mission is to revolutionize the animal welfare industry by leading and embracing a community-centric sheltering model. And by providing this, the private and municipal community shelters with equitable access, data-driven resources, education, and implementation tools. HASS aims to create a movement of unified animal welfare system for pets and their families. We don't believe that the system is broken. The system works exactly the way it's supposed to. It was created to be a warehouse for animals that eventually were killed because of the scourge of rabies, and that's how it's working. And so anything we add to that system, even when we add really great programs, a lot of times we end up reverting back to the core and the root. We believe the system should be replaced, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Some of our 4 core values are community-centric, which is recognizing and understanding that the human and the community are the way to save the maximum amount of animals, keep the animal in their community, put the barriers up when it comes to barriers to entry into the shelter, and by that we'll talk a little bit about that, rather than have 0 barriers to the entry to the shelter and many barriers to get an animal out of the shelter, even if you know who the pet owner is. Resource equity, which equity, if you think of it like this, equity would be asking me, and somebody raise your hand if you think you're short. Asking me, and what's your name? Vicky? No, right here, blue. Jen. Okay, so Jen, I know you, Vicky. So Jen, so me and Jen, you decide that me and Jen are going to play basketball against each other, right? Or you're going to ask me to grab something off the top shelf and ask Jen, well, why can't you grab something off the top shelf, Jen? That's equality. Equity is, why don't we get Jen a step stool or allow Jen to step on a chair? And that would be equity. Life-saving relationships, which means the shelter does not have to take on all of these programs by themselves. One of the issues that we have a lot within our culture and animal welfare is we think the shelter is the solution, and it should not be. It should be a part of the solution, but it should not be the end-all, be-all solution. And then also understanding the root causes. We know that when you walk in the door and you tell us why you're dropping an animal off, or why you brought it in, or why you're surrendering an animal, we understand that there is a reason there, and you're going to put it in your intake reasons. However, the question is, why did the person feel that they needed to walk into that door to begin with? What larger failure are we not addressing in society as a whole? And we've got it. The only way we can do that is to get outside of the shelter and work and network with the agencies that are working with people in their communities, and that's what we mean. Some of the we have 4 pathways, which is pet support services, which is community identified or developed by a shelter to assist pet owners, and that's anything from a website, information. One of the biggest, like I just recently said, is being proactive and doing the outreach on the front end, so that by the time people get to the door, they're not saying, "Listen, I just want to drop the animal off." Okay, I don't want to. If we are proficient enough in our outreach, I think you'll be able to impact a lot more people, and get them before they walk in the door, and then also have them take action in their community. Lost pet reunification, whether it is in the field or through the shelter services. Also supported self-rehoming, which means that the animal never enters the shelter, but you provide resources for that pet owner to rehome their animal. Most animals in the United States get rehomed without the shelter's responsibility, without the shelter ever even knowing about it. And so how do we weaponize that, or how do we create a support system for that to happen in the animals that we end up encountering, rather than them coming to the shelter? And then intake to placement, which is basically every animal having a plan for every animal before that animal walks in the door. And that's through data in our and understanding our community. Part of our implementation focused areas are data driven, which means in order for us to understand there's one thing to know something, there's another thing to understand why something's happening, and the data helps with that. And a lot of people look at data as just numbers. Everything you really record and you collect is data. Who walked in the door, how they walked in the door, where they walked in the door, and then what happened when they walked in the door. All of that is data. Or when you're out in the field as an officer, when you do a report, that case report that you write, that's data. And the question is, what are we going to do to, I got to go backwards. I pushed the wrong button. Let me see. There we go. Also, policy informed. What are the policies? So a lot of our agencies in the United States will support our shelter on one end, but then on the other end have policies that evict people from their homes and be supportive of those. Well, that policy that evicts people from their home is one of the reasons why animals are being dropped off at our shelter. So we make sure we make that connection. The community-centric resources, we want to build resources from the community back to the shelter, rather than what we're doing now, which is, or what we've done in the past, which is create a program and then try to impose it on the community. And then also customized consultation is something we do, and that is by going into different communities across the country as the HASS project, which is our 22 pilot shelters, and really working with them individually to address the needs in their community. Because the one mistake I think that I've seen made in the past is that we look at every problem and every community as the same and needing the same solutions, and that's not true. We also see ourselves as a resource for animal welfare as a whole. Those are our partners and anybody that signs up for our content. We do have a resource center on HASS, on humananimalsupportservices.org, and then I'll also have the address at the end of this presentation. Some of the things, now, that's the overview on HASS. Now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we are actually doing, like what is our day-to-day at HASS? How do we impact the world? And we look at our pilot shelters as our way of proving the concepts that we push out to the rest of the world. So a lot of the content that you absorb is a direct result of the projects that we do with our pilot shelters. So one of the several of our major projects are our Directors Roadshow. That's myself and the team going in person, because right now shelters in the United States are swamped with animals, and plus our work is not a tabletop exercise. You got to be, if you want to help a community and be in support of them, you've got to be there in person to do it, and in many respects, at least to get an understanding and talk to the staff and talk to the community. Community Connections, which is our way of networking shelters into their community through a merging human services and animal services together. Community Value Survey, understanding what the community values and what they want to see in terms of funding and support for the shelter. Our playbook, our rubric, which is our rubric and playbook, which is our way of having shelters measure how community-centric they are. And then our intake to placement barrier busting, which is, the core of HASS is barrier busting. Let's bust down those barriers, and the barriers we're talking about busting are the ones that keep people from their pets, whether it is an adoptable animal or someone trying to adopt, or a pet owner, or someone that is also, or an organization that wants to transfer that animal in. And also through ordinance audits and policy support. You've got to have that public policy in order to make what you want to see happen. Also, some of our projects are another group of projects are ones that measure the organizational culture, how well you are implementing community-centric projects within your shelter. We also have a model budget calculator that's coming up, which will show agencies how to calculate a budget that to fund the work that we do. Dr. Karsten was very vocal yesterday about capacity for care. That keeps that in mind too. How much money do you need to maintain a healthy shelter that is well maintained and run? Of the report card, grading, a grading system for the shelters to see what your progress is. Also, we redesigned our website for those of you who haven't been on it since about a month ago. And then also we have had a branding refresh, and we are also working on a project for Intake Reasons. Intake Reasons is one of the biggest projects in animal welfare right now, because not very many are getting it right. And it's the key to us understanding why animals are coming into the shelter and what the needs are of the people. Not only the pet, but the people that drop the animals off at the shelter, so we can not only be active, but proactive. Some of our, to talk to you a little bit about our community connections, we have a new software that we are working with called Bestie BNB that helps with, tracks domestic violence, pets that are families that are in the middle of a domestic violence situation. If that person, a person in that family has to go to a shelter, has a fostering system and a way to track animals through that fostering system, so that person feels that their animal is safe while they are handling their personal issue, and then also get that animal back afterwards. This is our slides from our third quarter report, so it's the most recent information on the Human Animal Support Services project. Also, We have our community value survey that we made available to 9 of our pilot shelters that really have a good idea of what their community wants to see from them, and they've been using it to great effect in their community, not only understanding the needs, but also making the case to the policymakers as to what the community, the type of support the community wants to see. We talked a little bit about the rubric, which is that is basically our foundation building for the shelters, and how do they build that foundation. I always tell people, don't look at a program and ask the people that if you see a program that you really want to emulate, don't ask them first where they are, ask them where they started, because programs take a lot of time to build. So you're going to start where they started and ask them, where did you begin? A lot of times programs fail because the staff that we try to get to do the program are looking at a finished product, and we really want them to be more in tune to how to start the program and the project. Also, we have our barrier busting project, which is big. We plan to prove, and we know that barrier busting is the key, whether it is having questions that are intrusive on adoption paperwork, or also barriers to owners getting their animal back. That's something that we are very strongly looking at to see how do we bust through those barriers and break the culture down of that as a standard within animal welfare, and start something new. Our organizational culture study is where we are soon going to release the findings from that. We already talked about our intake reasons, our budget calculated, and also our report card. And also, as far as the website rebrand, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. We basically took our website and we made it more user-friendly. We were finding that people were spending too much time having to find things. So we took everything that you would need in terms, or a lot of the tools you would need to do your work on a daily basis in our HASS resource center, and you can find that on our website as well. And then also, we are also leveraging our work with HubSpot to make sure that our communications and tracking is in alignment with our continued brand alignment. As far as our ordinance audit, we've audited probably about 10 agencies, and the reason why that's important is because one of the things we want to do with these agencies is we know that the first step is to take a look at the ordinance and to recommend what would be community-centric. And we've discovered that in looking at our in ordinances as a whole, that they are all designed to really be punitive. And how not only do we want to remove the punitive nature in as many cases as we can, because we know there are people who probably do need the punitive piece of that, where people who are intentionally harming animals, or people that are or situations where a person is allowing their animal to be a danger to the public. But for the most part, what we want to do is create laws and make recommendations that protect people from the government, and say, require the government to do certain things before they go to the enforcement level and issue that citation that in the United States could end you up in jail next to the person that cut somebody's head off, but the only thing you did was not have a license for your pet. Some of our, in terms of our data and research, some of the integration we've had are conferences like this one, also with a conference called My Dog Is My Home, the Animal Shelter Veterinarian Guideline Update Conference, some of the Canine Science Symposium, and then also we do a lot of virtual support as an adoption, virtual behavior support as an adoption return prevention, and we work a lot with an organization called Good Pup That's a for-profit agency that helps with behavior issues within the shelter, behavior training for people who adopt an animal from a shelter. Some of our direct pilot support highlights are we're working towards, so for instance, in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, we are working towards tracking animals that come in with a microchip to inform improvement of return to owner rates. Analysis in Kansas City, analysis of trends in reasons for adoption returns, and then also Rochester supporting integrating data into report writing to advocate for change. And the reason why I'm taking you through this is because I want you to understand, as far as our project, the detail part of it, that there's a lot of detail and a lot of work into improving organizations across the United States. Also, some of our, how is data driving our actions? I'll give you a few examples. So, for instance, Lifeline, an analysis of 6 months for data collection that captures the type of pet identification related to the highest RTO outcomes. We're developing intake reasons with Greenville. We also have pilot interviews for our foundation sections of our rubric and our checklist section of our rubric. And then also Pasco County, which is in Florida. We continue to monitor their intake and locations from HASS heat maps, which we probably won't talk much about heat maps, but heat mapping is a very important part of our project as well. And then data tracking and aggregation of our barrier busting projects, and then also more heat mapping with the Casey Pet Project, and how they can use that to improve their communications with their community. Some of our dashboards we are working on are one that has demonstrates the shelter population balance, which is basically the internal population of your shelter and the formulas behind that, and then also an adoption return reasons view as well, to give them a better sense of why animals are being returned and ways to so that they can start building programs that address those reasons for return. Behavior is normally a big one, but that's one of our other ones. And then also we have a shelter KPI view, key performance indicator view, that assists the shelters in looking at their internal operation in terms of the animals that come and go within their shelter, and we help build those tools for them. We are definitely, data completeness is a really big importance for us, because if your data is incomplete, then you can only get so much information. It doesn't mean you can't get any information, but incomplete data gives you incomplete information, and the only thing that will give you complete information or better information is complete data. And so we look at that amongst our 22 pilot organizations, which that includes 45 actual individual buildings that, and some of our organizations, they oversee multiple jurisdictions within their organization. So as far as our industry collaboration, we work with agencies that you may have heard of, like Shelter Animals Counts, the Shelter Pet Data Alliance, which is the Best Friends platform. And I should have taken off the please keep item internal, because everybody knows. I mean, they're public now. When this slide was written, it wasn't internal. The Humane Society of the United States, and Rehome by Adopt-A-Pet, and also pretty much all of the shelter software companies that do business in the United States. As far as our education and implementation, we do direct pilot support. We talked about that. One of our big projects is our barrier busting project, which is one-on-one group training, and also we providing them with new sources for implementation. Our partner shelters, we provide them with pet supports in the rubric, and we've used them to really inform us on how to refine that rubric. And then also our implementation highlights. for this last quarter were we created a new Google group for all staff implementing current education programs, and then also we are in Cabot, our website is updated to have clearer instructions for adopters, and they significantly increased the number of available animals that the public were able to see. And that's Mike's shelter in Cabot. Once again, as far as our current education program, we have 14 participating shelters in our intake to placement, which you'll be seeing the results of this at the beginning of next year. That we've done 31 hours of direct support to our pilot shelters, and this is something we measure. And then also, because at the end of the HASS project, we want to make sure, or as the HASS project continues, we want to continue to tell the story of what it took to make a project like this happen. And then also in our bios and we've had 30 registrants and 15 live attendees in some of our group trainings in our last quarter. And I'll give you some more in-depth data into that. And then also some of our successes are obviously we've removed adoption barriers and home inspections, verification, application fees. Those are some of the things that the Barrier Busting Project has helped shelters with already before we've really collected all the data. Bio writing, which is extremely important if you want to tell the public the story of your pet, of these pets. And then also we have a really great tool called Pets.Find-Help that help residents in a community find low cost or free services. And then also our pet support service program within our playbook are providing feedback regarding that, and so you'll be seeing that soon. And also our low cost pet reunification is in development, and lost pet reunification is in development, which is obviously the return to home. And then supported self-rehoming is also on deck. As far as some of the work that we do with Maddie's University, Maddie's University creates a tool that allows animal welfare professionals to be engaged in animal welfare and with their educational content. So please come to our website and look through that information. We have a portal for you to register, and as you can see, our registrations for the last quarter were over 1,000, and over close to 200 people completed that. So that's a really great resource for you, not just our content, but also the Maddie's Fund. Some of our key government and policy insights. We are continuing to track our bills through we have a bill tracker tool on our website, and also we publish HASS blogs regarding two most recent ones is why can't vets in Texas, animal shelters treat own pets, and then also animal advocates need to be housing advocates too. I definitely recommend you read both of those articles. They provide you a lot of information. And then also we're completing audits in 4 of our shelters. Some of our national work is Colorado House Bill House Bill 1068, which has placed a cap on rent and deposits, also eliminates breed discrimination and requires various protections for pets and their owners. And then also in Maryland requires the state to a House bill that we are working on now, or that passed, provide a list of pet-related resources for owners and tenants that provide protections for pets. And then also in Maine, we recently helped a bill get passed to protect pets and their owners from during an eviction. And we do a lot of work in Texas, As you know, Texas needs a lot of work. And so we spend a lot of time in Texas, which is what our parent company, Austin Pets Alive, is where they're housed. But some of the highlights from that are we are moving slowly but surely, but Puppy Paws and Making Laws events on the South Lawn. And so one of the things we do is we try to do events for the legislators that help them understand the importance of pets. And most people understand the importance of pets, but it gives us an informal way of talking to those state legislators about animals that is not so in your face, pounding on the table, asking them to support something when they may not have, they may not understand the value of it. You got to build that value. Some of our other projects that we are working on in terms of Marcom, it's like I said, our website, we have webinars, we have a social media page. I encourage you to look at, whether it's Facebook, we have Instagram, and also LinkedIn, and then also you get a quarterly letter from myself, and then we have a podcast called Pets, People, and Purpose, where we interview people from inside and outside the industry that are really making a difference and how animals made a difference for them, but also keeping people at the center of that work too. We have launched our community connections at the Kansas City Pet Project, and also connected with 14 with 14 unique pilot shelter market teams and executive leaders, and we've identified concerns to inform them of the basics. Also, as far as our content, at our webinars, we've had over 5,000 people in this last quarter be registered, and about 1,500 attendees, and so and we do 6 webinars per quarter. Also, we've had great engagement with our YouTube, which we also have a YouTube channel, and our Buzzsprout, which is how we get a lot of our information out as well. Our website has large traffic, as you can see, and then also the growth of our page. We're constantly growing our page, so please spread the word, because there's a lot of content for that page. And then also, as you can see, our marketing content, our Facebook content, we have an engaged support base there. Industry engagement, we are, if you look at overall, as we track, because we want to track and see what our impact is within the industry, and where we are making the most difference. Our next conference after this one will be at HSUS Expo in April. And then also we do track our work with Pet Stop Find Help, and this also is not only a tracking to find out who's using it, but what they're using it for. And as you can see, veterinary financial help for veterinary services, pet pantry, spay, neuter, vaccination, all of the basic things that are needed within the community. And we use the analytics for every community to inform our pilot shelters on what their community is actually searching for, so we can help them design programs to reach that audience. That's my contact information. And with that, thank you for listening. I know it was a lot of information I had to get through, but I appreciate you listening.